The murder of Greg Smart was definitely a tragedy. He was only 24 years old when he was shot. He begged for his life. He was forced to his knees, threatened with a knife, and then shot and killed. It was definitely a tragedy. It happened over 36 years ago. Pamela Smart has been in prison for over 36 years. Why, after all this time, is she still hated? The four young men who were in high school at the time have all been paroled over a decade ago. One person who was involved in the murder, 16 years old at the time, Cecilia Pierce, who looked for a gun to be used on a man who had never harmed her in any way, made a deal so sweet that she never even saw the inside of a jail cell. But Pamela Smart is still in prison, and she has been denied any opportunity to even have a commutation hearing. Now, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A commutation hearing would not be freedom. It would just mean that she would have the chance to ask that her sentence allow her to go before a parole board to show that she has changed, that she is no longer a menace to society. She's been in prison far longer than she was in the free world. She went to prison when she was 22 years old. And people still hate her. In New Hampshire, there's so much hatred that, the New Hampshire Executive Council turned her down for a commutation hearing twice. And I don't know if it's 2 or 3 times, but they've always turned her down. And the governor wouldn't even put it before the Executive Council last time. Okay, why is she so hated? So uniquely hated. There's a lot of murders. Okay, one reason, I believe, is the fact that the perception that she manipulated a teenage boy into committing this murder. Now, she was not charged with statutory rape. And the reason was because the flirting, or you might call it grooming, some people would call it grooming, started when he was 15 years old, which is below the age of consent in New Hampshire. The age of consent is 16. They had sexual relations when he was 16, which was legal. Okay. But it still wasn't right. The school hired her to be a media coordinator, not to have a romance or a sexual relationship with one of the high school students. Okay, now we all know that teenagers, even when they get to be 18 or 19, and certainly when they're 16, they're very volatile. And they're very kind of emotionally go up and down a lot. And there is a widespread perception that, a female psychopath or sociopath can fairly easily use sex and the promise of sex, or the promise of romance, to manipulate male minors into committing crimes. I think it's been done. It's probably been done. And a lot of people believe that it was done in this case, that she may even have targeted this boy because she thought he was vulnerable and would be susceptible to manipulation specifically through sex. Again, it's not statutory rape, but still, she wasn't hired to have an affair with, you can call, it wasn't a affair, not statutory rape, because it was 16 when they sex started, but she wasn't hired to have an affair. She was hired to do a job. Her job was media coordinator. Now, a lot of people say that she was a teacher, which actually was not true. They always, she's often identified as a teacher. And so I think that accounts for a lot of the hatred of her. Another thing is just being a woman on trial, they tend to focus a lot on your sexuality, your prettiness. And she kind of fit into a kind of femme fatale stereotype. I mean, people would talk about, or journalists would describe her looks when she went into the